I haven't done anything online in quite a while, but over the last many months, as I explore the five elements as a practitioner of Chinese medicine and Taoist arts, um, I started to recognize and realize that one of the most powerful ways to communicate and teach five element theory and yin and yang theory in a way that's pragmatic, that's grounded, that's accessible, that's universal, and that most importantly is really helpful, I believe, is through the lens of relationships, because all of life is relationships. And the real strength of Chinese medicine and of Taoist medicine and a lot of indigenous and earth-based teachings is their understanding of pattern recognition and of the interrelatedness, the interdependence of everything. I mean, at the absolute or universal level, but also in terms of functional dynamics and what a healthy system looks like, and what the relationships in the body between the organs, between the energy, the blood, the body fluids, and the healthy functioning of our physiology, the healthy relationship between our thoughts, our emotions, and our body, our physical body, that really all of that is about flow. It's about opening up the communication in the channels of relationship between the different aspects or the dimensions of the self, such that there's harmony there. And when there's harmony, there's health. The basis of disease in Chinese medicine, and this is true in most of the earth-based traditions that I've studied, the basis of disease is stagnation. So somewhere in the body, somewhere in the emotions, somewhere in a person's life, in their relationships, there's something stagnant and something needs to move. Or there needs to be an acupuncture needle either placed psychically in our emotional being or in our psychic being or in the physical body to open up these channels of communication, or something that we're repressing or suppressing or avoiding that we need to turn and face, which then opens up the communication. And so really the essence of earth-based medicine is relationship. It's communication and it's flow, and it's about bringing things into balance, right? Whether you're studying South American traditions, shamanic traditions, Taoist traditions, Ayurvedic, Indian medicine, all of the older cultures and traditions that had these extraordinary and profound systems of medicine were rooted in relationship and learning to recognize patterns of relationship. So that's the basis of what I do with Chinese medicine. But when I started to really look at some of the different systems um, in terms of neuroscience, Western psychology, psychoanalysis, Jungian psychology, some of the Western mythologies and philosophical systems, and then map those with like attachment theory, which in the last 20 years has been a lot of research has gone into the way that we form attachments in childhood and how those inform our adult relationships. And then looking at dynamics between the five elements psychologically and emotionally, I started realizing that when you map these systems together, these different dimensions of the self, so the ego, the superego, the shadow, the unconscious, um, and you put the dimensions of the self together in the architecture that psychoanalysis and Western psychology has created for us, and you map it with the five elements and with basically attachment theory, which is kind of like Western yin yang theory, that what emerges out of that map is a very profound picture of human relationships and how to understand them and create harmony in them. Because I don't know about you, but in my life, probably the biggest challenges I've had have all been interrelational. They've been both romantic relationships, professional relationships, teacher-student relationships, that the dynamics that I've experienced in those relationships, the challenges, the endings, have often been the most disruptive and dysregulating and at times painful. You know, I don't know if you've read this book, Men are from Mars, Women are from Venus, right? But oftentimes interrelationships between masculine and feminine polarities, sometimes it feels like uh, men and women do come from completely different universes. And also people find themselves in relationships or friendships where there's a lot of love, a lot of care, but there's something about it that just seems totally dysfunctional, and they can't understand what it is. So after kind of years of studying uh, Taoist medicine, Chinese medicine, I realized that this is maybe the most powerful way to communicate some ideas that could seem very abstract or very kind of conceptual to really land them in practical application where they can really help us in our lives. And understanding compatibilities in elemental relationships, understanding your own elemental makeup, and how you get your needs and wants met based on your kind of elemental makeup, and some of your kind of proclivities, affinities, tendencies, and how and why we have a constitutional elemental makeup. What makes a person more metal versus more wood versus more fire? And what does that mean about the conscious and unconscious kind of techniques and strategies and methods around their getting their needs met and how that shows up in relationship? So ultimately, my hope in exploring this together is one that it helps you understand yourself first and foremost better, but also to help you understand your partners, the people you work with, your friendships. Because when you can start to see relationships through the lens of the elements and through the lens of attachment theory, and through the lens of developmental integral theory, which, talks about the ego, the unconscious, the superego, the different aspects of the self, then we can start to approach relationships as the path of awakening, of waking up. There's a wonderful quote. I don't remember where it came from, but it often pops in my mind, which is, there are no enlightened beings, only enlightened actions. And so ultimately, it's through our moment by moment lived experience that we lean into living a more conscious life. And when we start to look at relationships as a mirror, right? Every relationship is a mirror. Then the relationships that we find ourselves in are interactions. Every one of those relationships, every interaction becomes significant. And we realize that um, no relationship is insignificant, whether it's the woman at the checkout counter at their grocery store, or it's your parents or your deepest relationships. Every relationship is a mirror and it's showing you something. And when we can really start to cultivate that mindfulness in our interrelatedness, then we realize that relationships are a path of awakening. They're a way for us to wake up. Um, but we need help. And that's where I think the five elements and some of these ideas I'm going to share in this course can be very helpful. At least they have been for me, and they've been helpful enough that I felt like I wanted to share them with people. So today's really just about kind of going over what we're gonna explore in the course. And I'm gonna start each of these classes with a meditation because if these ideas only enter at the level of the intellect or at the level of concept, they're not terribly helpful. They have to land in the body. And really, a big, big part of relationships is our nervous systems and how we regulate our nervous systems. And so, by starting each class, I won't be starting every class by just spitfiring a bunch of words at you. We're gonna sit and have a cup of tea. Or actually, the idea is to enjoy some tea on your own, and then we'll start with a meditation. And the classes going forward, we'll probably do about a 20-25 minute sit at the beginning, and and then You know what we're actually going to do today? I'm gonna do the class because I've already opened the can of worms and everybody's thinking about things already. So we'll actually end the class. I'm going to open it up for people to ask questions, and we'll end the class with a short meditation at the end. But going forward, we're going to open in silence, and then I'll share some ideas, and then there will be space to ask questions at the end. Um, the importance of meditation, I think, in life, I think it's as important as eating and brushing your teeth and getting exercise. It's the really, I kind of say if I had like 5 minutes with somebody and they wanted some life advice, not that I have any to give, but I have my own experience to share. I would say to people, start a dedicated and disciplined meditation practice. There's really nothing can supersede or replace what's available through a strong practice. And, all the ideas that I'm sharing today, they don't really have much potency. They won't change your life or the way that you live without a practice. Um, I mean, I think ultimately every moment in life, mindfulness, awareness is available. But nowadays we live in such a hyper-stimulated culture that, most people are lost in distraction, myself included. We're lost in thought most of the time. And we spend so much of our time in the future or in the past or somewhere other than the present. And, our nervous systems take the toll of that, and our identities fragment. So, we can think one thing and be doing another. There can be misalignment between our values and then the way that we actually live. And so much of the challenges that we face in relationships um, are a byproduct of not being present with people and not listening closely enough. So, you know, I'm going to talk a bit about meditation, but all that to say, if there's one thing you take from this course, it's a strong encouragement to begin a daily meditation practice if you don't already have one. And I'm specifically going to go into a practice of meditation called silent illumination, and it originated in the 1100s with a Chan Buddhist monk in southern China named Hongzhi. And that practice evolved to later become the foundation for Dogen's teachings in Zen Buddhist practice. Um, so this practice of silent illumination, Mo Zhao, is it's different than Zen practice, which is Zazen or Shikantaza. It's really rooted in bringing yin and yang together, is a way of putting it, or establishing oneself in silence, in an emptiness, um, and stillness in the body. And it brings together, for those of you who've practiced Vipassana, which is a practice of cultivating a special way of seeing. Pasana is to see, Vipassana is to see deeply. It's a way of recognizing the impermanence of thoughts, emotions, sensations, and how this idea of a fixed identity that we cling to and that we try to build our lives up around is actually impermanent. It's constantly moving. And so the reason that this practice of silent illumination is so powerful to me is that it brings together Vipassana with another Buddhist approach to meditation called shamatha, which is calm abiding. And the idea is really to open up a field of awareness. So rather than the meditation being a technique that you do, it's actually about cultivating a mode of awareness. And this mode of awareness is one that is very still and very open, where you can watch. what's going on inside of you, your thoughts, your emotions, the sensations in the body, your desires, your craving, your aversions, your beliefs. You can observe all of these things as objects in awareness, as phenomena, or as it's described kind of poetically, as birds that vanish and disappear, or a wind in the sky, right? So, in cultivating a big field of awareness, we allow ourselves to see all the things that we think are our identity of who we are and what we are to become objects that we can observe. And this practice is really important for working with the elements because we have to be able to see them. We have to be able to see the movements of energy, um, or the ways that the elements move through our lives and through ourselves. We have to be able to see them. And it's hard to see them unless we're very present with them and to see them in other people. So, um, so like I said, I think the meditation is central, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end of this class just sitting. I've got to make sure to track my time because those of you who have ever come to these, I have a tendency to ramble a little bit. So, um, on that note, I'm going to use some notes here so I don't wander away too much from what we're talking about. Um, Also, wherever you are out there, I hope you're brewing some nice tea because, of course, this is basically what we're doing is getting together and drinking tea together. So, like I said at the beginning, I started this class, or I decided to share this class because of how valuable this work has been for me in my own personal life. But it's also in recognition that, you know, if you're on social media, you get bombarded by all the companies and everybody after the New Year saying, talking about New Year's resolutions or what you need to optimize or what you need to fix or what you need to hack or how you need to create all these ambitious goals for the year. And we're still very much in the water element, which is about resting and storage and containment and going into one's depth and being comfortable with the unknown and for allowing what's gestating, beneath the earth to gestate. It's about our relationship to the mystery, and it's about allowing our nervous system to really deeply rest. And so it's not the time of year to come out the gate like full throttle with all the things you want to do and create. We're still in the time of the seed. And it's a very, very potent time because all of our creativity, all of our insight, and all of our wisdom ultimately comes out of working with our fear and our relationship to fear. Um, you know, as Carl Jung says, if you stay in the darkness long enough, you begin to see. So, this time of the year, we're still in yin work. We're still in this time of waiting and resting and storing and allowing what's called the jing or the deep reservoirs of energy in the body that's housed in the kidneys, at what's called the gate of life in Taoist medicine, these deep reservoirs of energy to really rest and to settle. Because out of that, we come in contact with what's most essential in us, and we start to see our relationship to fear in the body. And of course, most of this, the nervous system getting dysregulated and the limbic system being overactivated and shutting down executive function in the brain comes out of our relationship to fear. So really developing a deep relationship to fear and staying in this time of yin energy is really important for the cultivation of wisdom. When we really face fear in our lives, all of our wisdom arises out of that practice. And so, it's not the time of year to start setting all your goals and envisioning and planning and creating all the active or activating all of that yang energy in the body. So my idea, as I was getting bombarded with like New Year's stuff, was to come in and say this isn't about fixing or optimizing. Um, it's about understanding ourselves and aligning and allowing for flow, which is part of the water element. So, the water element is the most mutable of the elements. It can take the form of ice, it can take the form of water, or it can take the form of vapor or gas. And when it's not flowing, it becomes stagnant, right? But when um, in the kind of Taoist classical literature, they talk about water in the winter freezing. And this freezing of water is likened to concentration. It's related to meditation and the meditative mind being very concentrated, very focused, right? And that as you bring that focus into, as you take the scattered mind and you become focused, you focus the mind, one then unifies the mind. And this is a necessary prerequisite to moving towards non-dual states of the internal and the external world being separate. So this course is really about understanding and alignment instead of fixing or optimizing, like so many of the New Year's resolutions out there. And because we have such overstimulated nervous systems, and I don't know about you, but the world right now just seems really intense. There's so much going on. You go into the news for 5 minutes and it just feels like chaos. Um, and it's hard to not stay glued to social media or the news because any intelligent human being wants to know what the hell's going on. Like this is a complex world that we're in, and it's moving very fast with technology, with geopolitics, and with how much access we have to information. And so we have overstimulated nervous systems. Um, a lot of people, I think nowadays feel like their identity might feel a bit fragmented because you have access to so much information all the time. And I think relational dynamics are becoming more complex because we have so much mediation between our relationships. I mean, like even right now, right? We're communicating through technology. Um, Hold on, my dog is now trying to eat some things in the corner of the room. Hey, come here. Um, Puppies. He's like 8 months old, and basically everything in my house has been dismantled over the last couple months. Um, so the three areas that I'm gonna really focus on in this course are the first. Hey, stop. Stop doing that. He's like, what? Can you come over here? Can you come over here? Technical difficulties. Um, so the first is yin and yang theory. Um, or what, if you go back to Greek philosophy, these are referred to as eros and agape. And to briefly touch on that, because I'm going to go into it more deeply in the next class. Eros and agape, if you think about if you think about the five elements in nature, so I'm going to do a very brief introduction to the five elements right now to contextualize Eros and Agape. The water represents the deepest yin. It represents winter time, and the water is like the aquifers that are underneath the earth. As they nourish the root systems of the trees in the springtime, we see all of the plant kingdom come to life and start to emerge out of the earth. Hey, you got to cut it out. Come over here. Thank you. Can you just relax? Appreciate it. Um, and the springtime represents the wood element or the plant kingdom coming to life. All of the leaves and branches and the outburst of growth, this yang energy rising, is reaching up towards the sun, which is representative or symbolic of the fire element. And this time in the spring is the time of vision, of growth, of directionality, of upwards movement, of yang. I'm going to go much deeper into all this as we go into each of the elements, but it's just helpful to have a picture. So the plant kingdom comes to life in the springtime as the yang energy rises. And then we move into the fire season. Of course, fire is heating, but it's also drying. So as all of life emerges and erupts, it's a time of connection. It's a time of creativity. Hi, it's nice to meet you as well. It's a time of creativity. And if we look at the Chinese character for fire, it looks like um, sparks coming off of a central flame or like the arms of children reaching out. So the fire element's connected to the heart, and it has to do with openness. It has to do with the spark of connection between people, with vulnerability, with intimacy, with connection. Um, as that fire gets too big, it turns into a conflagration. Ultimately, it can burn out or become excessive. As things catch flame, they turn into ash and they fall down, becoming the earth element. Um, the earth is the force of stability. It's what pulls things together. It's about care and nourishment. It's what provides us food. It's about reciprocity and altruism, generosity. You know, earth people are very stable. They're very reliable. They're easygoing. They have a balance of giving and taking, you know. They're the people in the kitchen always preparing food for everybody, right? They're caretakers. So the earth then, as you go deeper down, we're moving downwards in the cycle. We go down into the earth, and what do we find growing under the ground? Down in the deeper levels, in the caves, in the shadowy underworld, is metal, right? This is the place of sapphires and gems and crystals and minerals down in the earth, right? And it has to do with order and meaning and integrity and value, right? Gold, silver, the things that we use as exchanges of value. It's about metal is about cutting, right? Some of the things we make with metal, knives for cutting away the fat, for separating, swords, you know, weapons. So metal's a lot about boundaries, us and them. It's about the surface of things. It's about knowing how to let go and what to hold on to. And it represents in the autumn time, right? So as we're moving into the yin time of the year, in the autumn, the leaves falling from the trees is representative of this metallic cutting energy. So the leaves change color, they fall to the earth as fertilizer, right? So it's about cutting away what's non-essential as we move into the deep yin back into water. And, you know, as we move into water, we're getting into resources. When we lived in a more agrarian age and we were closer to the earth, we didn't have access to food 24 hours a day at the grocery store. And so resources, survival in the winter, depth, the ancestors, your relationship to family and lineage, um, and the feelings of safety, the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen, survival. You know, these life or what death teaches us about living an authentic life and what matters. Wisdom, fear. You know, these are all qualities connected to the water and the winter. And then that again, the water starts to nourish the roots again, and in the spring we start to see the renewal of wood. So this is what's referred to as the Sheng cycle in Chinese medicine, the five elements. So wood into fire, into earth, into metal, into water. And we see this movement of the five elements in every aspect of life, in human personalities, in constitutions, in constitutional strengths and weaknesses, in the organ systems. We see them throughout all of nature. Um, and they're not unlike Western elements, you know, when we talk about the four elements. these aren't substances. It's not literal wood or literal fire. These are processes. It's called whooshing or the phases. It's ways of understanding movements and patterns of energy. And these phases of energy inform our relationships in every way. And I think what you'll learn in this class, as you start to look at your relational dynamics, is you'll start to see, oh, this person's got a lot of wood energy. They're focused so much on growth, on purpose, on directionality, on leadership, on initiative, on vision, on they're cheerleaders, right? They're outwards and their energy. They're extroverted often. And as we start to see people's elemental makeups, or they're wood with a little bit of um, fire, or they've got a little wood energy, but then maybe some shadow and metal. When you start to see these dynamics and they come to life for you, um, they can completely change the way that you understand relationships. And also, they can help you cultivate more empathy and compassion because you stop wanting people to be different than the way they are, right? So much of our problems in relationships is we want people to be either the way we are or in a way that would feel better but when you start to understand people are the way they are based on their constitutional dynamics combined with the way that they were raised, which is a lot of attachment theory, right? Like how we got our needs met when we were kids, basically, and how that manifests in our relationships. Then you stop expecting people to be different than they are, and you can cultivate greater compassion for folks. Um, so understanding how our under when we're in stress versus when we're in harmony, we can learn about a lot about the elements. And oftentimes our dominant elemental makeup, so if you see yourself as a fire person or as an earth person, um, oftentimes those dominant elements developed as compensatory strategies. So they developed when we were young. So I'm going to talk in the course about two ways in which we develop elemental makeups. One of them is what's called prenatal essence, and it has to do with kind of what you came in with, meaning what you were born with. It has to do a bit with your general makeup. And you can oftentimes see this in a person's physical appearance, the way they walk, the way they talk. Um, and then we have the elemental makeup that developed later in life and mostly through our upbringing. And I think part of this class is about healing the elements in us, and another part of it is about understanding them and how to apply them in our lives to bring greater harmony into our lives. The thing is that no element can heal if the body is overwhelmed. So if our nervous systems are in sympathetic mode, if we're stressed out all the time, if we're overwhelmed, then we can't heal the elements in ourselves and we can't work with them in a way that's actually helpful. So part of working with the nervous system is really learning how to deeply rest, to deeply relax, to access these deeper dimensions in ourselves. So, um, this idea of eros and agape, which, yeah, I got time. If anybody needs me to take a minute, because I realize I talk a lot and I talk fast, then like let's have a cup of tea. I think the truth is that there's so much material here that trying to fit it into little 30-minute things is a little challenging. So I'm going to do my best to kind of get to the essence. But there's a lot of material. We could honestly spend a full year on this material every week and would still kind of just be getting into the past the introduction. So I'll do my best in these classes to kind of cut to the chase and get to the essence of what's here. But it's a lot. There's a lot of material when we're talking about all the dimensions of the self, all the elements in attachment theory in short little classes. It's actually impossible to be to be totally honest, but we can still get to some good material. Um, so when we look at the five elements that I just described, wood in the spring, into yang, fire in the summer, and down into earth and metal and water. That entire side, what's called the left side of the Shung cycle, from water through wood up into fire. This is what I would call eros. It is the erotic impulse. It is the creative impulse. It is the archetypal force to evolve. It is the experience of loving, of reaching out, as opposed to being loved. So it's active. And this is very central to this work because I'm going to distinguish in terms of yin and yang between eros and agape. And if eros is rooted in desire, it's rooted in becoming as opposed to being, and it's rooted in evolution. We're talking about the impulse towards union ultimately. And we can look at it in terms of the chakra system, right? Moving up through the chakras. So in the lower chakras, we're talking about the erotic impulse towards sexual union and connection with others. As it moves up into the heart, as the heart opens like a lotus, we're talking about emotional union with others, with connection, and up into spiritual union at the higher levels, and ultimately non-dual reality. And this movement is it's the fire pushing higher. It's the love of the lower for the higher. And the movement is from water through wood into fire. And when it's extroversion, it's connection, intimacy, it's the desire to evolve and become. And, it's the pursuit in its wholesome case for the good, the true, and the beautiful, and towards authoring the authentic self. It's the part of us that wants to face everything, that wants to grow, that wants to create, that wants to evolve. Now, the shadow of pure creativity, right, is burning too hot. It's as one of my teachers, Lonnie Jarrett, says, the 27 Club, right? It's all of the creative people who just are on fire to create, and they're burning so hot that they burn out, or they die, or they overdose. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, maybe Jeff Buckley. I just watched the documentary recently. If you know who Jeff Buckley is, it's extraordinary. Um, it is, Kurt Cobain, right? It's people who are hyper creative but they burn a little too hot. It's the attitude is live fast and die young and live a good looking corpse, right? Um, or, as Churchill said, straight ahead, damn the torpedoes. It's full throttle. I will, I must, I will face everything. It's this desire to grow, to evolve, and in its most wholesome expressions, it is the pursuit of the truth. And really, when we talk about alignment, this is aligning with what the universe has been doing for 14 billion years. Of course, with the Big Bang, something, we'll say consciousness, said yes and has been saying yes every moment since then, or else we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So it's really about getting on board with what the universe is already doing, which is evolving. And consciousness pushes this evolutionary uh, force forward. So that is the erotic impulse. It's eros in Greek philosophy. Socrates coined the terms eros and agape. So that movement of wood and fire is countered, that it's yang energy, masculine daytime solar energy in Taoist medicine, and it is countered by yin energy. and, in Western terminology, what we would call agape. And agape is, if eros is the experience of loving, agape is the experience of being loved. And it is receptive, unconditional. It's love rooted in compassion, not um, connection or eroticism. It's about the witness and allowing and accepting. It's kind of like grandmotherly love. It's receptive, loving, and unconditional. And it's rooted in emptiness and trust and the feminine and the unconscious. Um, and this type of love, when we look at that cycle, is the movement down through earth, through metal, and into water, right? It has a lot to do with stability, safety, integrity, meaning, depth, stillness. And it's not about evolving. It's about meaning and trust and letting go, And so this shows up as yin energy, and it's where potential and stillness is rooted. Now, kind of if the shadow of Eros is burning out and too much expression, overstimulation, then the kind of shadow of agape is withdrawal and inertia and avoidance and not doing anything, things stagnating, right? And so this balance of yin and yang is connected to um, attachment theory in terms of avoidance and anxious avoidance on one hand, which is more yin, um, or more in the agape realm, you could say, more in the earth and metal and water realm, and anxiousness, which is more in the eros or the wood and fire realm, and the neediness and moving out too much and constantly reaching and craving and pursuing, right? And then between avoidance and anxiousness, we have security and secure relationships and finding the balance between these tendencies, right? So, at a very general level, right, where you're starting to see this map of the five elements and of attachment theory kind of coming together there a little bit.
Paul,
Now,
we're at like 14 minutes. So if you want time for questions and meditation and
yeah,
stuff, just want you to know.
I gotcha. Thanks, Jenna. Um, Now, the last thing I'm just going to mention, but I'm not going to go into it, is I'm going to be exploring aspects of the different dimensions of the self in the course, but this course is not a course on the dimensions of the self. So I'll be talking about authenticity in the authentic self as part of Eros, and I'll be talking about emptiness in the ground of being as part of agape and part of meditation, and the unconscious, the ego, the superego, and the difference between mind and psyche, and a little bit about soul and willpower and conscience. So these things will be kind of sprinkled in, but really the focus is going to be on the elements and learning how to identify them and to work with our relationship to them. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about developmental stages as we move through these elements. So again, there's way more material here than we can fit into a short course, but I'm going to do my best to make it accessible and so that it's not abstract and it's not just ideas floating around. And the course isn't about fixing anything. It's just about seeing. It's about understanding and learning how to relate to people, considering our nervous systems, these archetypal big forces that are working through us, and how to see the elements in life because it can really change your life in extremely wonderful ways. So I want to give everybody just a couple of minutes to ask questions, and then we'll close with a short meditation to ground some of this in the body. Um, I hope everything I've been sharing is landing and making some sense here. So,
Hello there.
hi,
Hiya. That was really insightful. Beautiful. Thank you.
pleasure.
I just want to ask you, please. I know you're talking through a Taoist lens, but you also touched briefly on a meditation that you said I think they were going to be doing at the end. That was Dogen's a reference to Dogen. And I'd like you just to say a little bit more about that link, if you would, because I study Dogen and I've never come across that. So I'm just really fascinated by learning a wee bit more about that. And the other thing is this course coming from a Taoist more perspective, or is it coming through? Because you mentioned the word soul there. So yeah, I'm just wondering where you're kind of coming from in terms of the overarching, I guess, philosophy of the course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a great and loaded question. So I'll do my best to respond without fully unpacking it. Um, because there's more there than I have time to respond to. But um, the meditation practice today, we're just going to do a short kind of relaxation, more like Vipassana based body scan. But um, all right, I'm going to answer the question in order. So I've studied Dogen's work. I've been very involved in Zen practice for a long time. Um, and my background is in Chinese medicine, which is Taoist. And I went to a school for 7 years that was rooted in a Taoist lineage. So the practices of Neidan, which is inner alchemy, of Tai Chi, of Qigong, and our entire approach to acupuncture, herbalism, dietetics, everything was really rooted in a Taoist lineage. So to the extent that I ascribe to labels, I would call myself Taoist. Um, the five element theory, the ideas that we'll be discussing are deeply steeped in and rooted in Taoist practice and teaching. Please excuse my dog barking in the background. And so I would say the overarching and informing framework that we'll be talking about here is Taoist. Yes. Buddy. Osha. Okay. So so the foundation is Taoist. The practice of silent illumination um, comes from Hongzhi Yue, who's a 11th century Chan Buddhist monk. And sorry, my dog is just going crazy in the background here. I'll have to set up a better recording situation for next week's class so we're not getting interrupted. Um, So he's Chan Buddhist and predates Dogen and Shikantaza and Zen Buddhist um, practice. This practice of silent illumination is closer to Taoist practice because there is a yin and yang component of it, as opposed to it being just seated practice. In Dogen's teachings, and in Zen Buddhist practice, it's really focused on just sitting and on doing nothing else, right? So there is an embodiment aspect of it. Um, but really it's not about cultivating a field of awareness or um, a mode of perception, a mode of awareness. Just sitting or the practice of shikantaza is really about establishing oneself in emptiness, not as cultivating a mode of perception. Sorry,
Thank
my
you
dog.
so much. I get that. I'm a Zen practitioner too. Would you have the reference just for where the illumination meditation comes from? Thank
Sure. So you can go to the source material. This book, Cultivating the Empty Field. It's by It's the Silent Illumination of Master Hongzhi. This is the best translation of the source material I've come across. But if you want something, he wrote in very poetic terms. And if you want something less kind of nature-based in terms of metaphor, um, there's a book called Silent Illumination by a current Chan Buddhist teacher and monk who runs the Tallahassee Zen Center named Guogu. Guogu, and his practice is profound. He's teaching, I think, from a very realized place in the practice. And his book's called Silent Illumination is incredibly accessible. He's a wonderful teacher. His classes on YouTube are great. If you ever find yourself in Tallahassee, Florida, you can go hang out with him. And his approach to this particular practice is very clear. It's very it comes out of practice, not out of concept. Um, so you had referred to the question of a soul, and this is where it gets into there is a little bit of blending here. And I'll do my best if it's important to you to try and distinguish when I am referring to Western psychoanalytic or psychology versus Taoist teachings versus Buddhist teachings. Um, I've done a lot of study of Steiner's work and Carl Jung, and there's a lot going on here. So I'll do my best to try to distinguish between them because I don't want to create confusion if I'm blending different traditions, right? But generally speaking, we're doing Taoist practice with a little bit of Buddhist meditation, if you want to look at it that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thanks again for this. It's already a lot of great information. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning. My question was really around, you had mentioned like relationships and attachment theory. And I was wondering how maybe that relates to our relationship with tea and the practice of Qigong. And I don't know, I'm curious if you found anything in your meditations that's come up around why we've formed this beautiful relationship with tea, um, in this lifetime and how that maybe could relate.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. Sometimes I forget that this is a tea company. Um, the tea, of course, has a deep relationship historically to Buddhist practice, especially Zen in Japan. But you can go back earlier into Chan Buddhist practice that's related to tea, and then to the Taoist origins in southern China. In Yunnan, where pu'er tea comes from, um, there are a lot of Taoist monasteries, and the earliest monastic relationship to tea would have been in southern China. And it was a plant medicine. It was what's called a Shen tonic in early Taoist medicine. And the Shen is the spirit that inhabits the heart. And we're going to there's a whole class on this. And part of what makes tea a Shen tonic is its ability to calm the mind, to open the heart, and to move stagnant energy or qi in the body. Um, and this working with tea as a plant medicine to cultivate a clear relationship to the spirit or to the heart mind, to what's called the Shen in Chinese medicine, is a very profound practice. There's teas that are more yang and teas that are more yin. The way I relate to tea and that at Living Tea we relate to it is we work with the teas elementally. So there are teas that are more wood or fire or earth or metal or water. And when we start to work with Camellia sinensis, with tea as an elemental practice, we're using it to cultivate a relationship to the elements that for bringing ourselves into balance. And um, working with teas seasonally and working with them elementally is a very, very profound practice. It's the primary, I'm an herbalist, but tea is the primary herb that I work with every day and have been for 20 years. And um, it's still it still works. Is a way of putting it. Meaning it's still a very effective and very deep plant medicine, and in fact, it's only deepened over time. So I'll talk about teas in each of the classes, and um, you know, I'm gonna thank you for bringing the question up, and I'll work to weave in how tea is related to this, to what I'm exploring. But essentially, we're going to follow this class with an email, and it will outline what the daily practice is. And in the next class, I'm going to walk through the actual daily practice and how to work with the journal prompts and how to work with tea throughout this course. The one thing I'll say, and I know that it's 9, so if people have to leave, they can. I'll stay on and lead a short meditation, but if you need to leave, of course, I understand. Um, so um, we do something called the Pour Club. It's a monthly, I curate a special tea every month that's seasonally appropriate, and they're really wonderful teas. So the recommendation throughout this course is to get the tea from the Pour Club. Something that's nice about that is that then we're all drinking the same tea. I think it creates a field of coherence. If you don't like Pour, fine, you can drink whatever you like. But to really sit for 3 steepings in silence before the class. So to not be doing other things, no technology, to just sit in quiet, working with the senses, working with the 5 senses, and preparing the tea. If you need some guidance on how to prepare tea properly or well, we have the ritual kit, which this teapot, it's Zisha clay. It's a very special clay pot. The ritual kit comes with tea bowl, this pot, and a guide on how to prepare tea. I really developed and designed the ritual kit to take all the guesswork out and give you the essentials for practice. You could get a ritual kit or just the Pour Club and just get the one pour. But the idea is to weave tea into the practice of meditation and elemental reflection throughout this course, right? If you get your teas elsewhere, fine, but make sure they're organic for a lot of reasons. And you know, I'll be weaving tea in and out of this class. Did that answer your question? I hope so.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. That was beyond what I expected. It really was kind of relating to in some ways why each one of us that shows up for tea, why there isn't a relationship there that we're trying to cultivate. And I think you certainly touched on it, and I know from what I'm hearing and what you're saying, you're going to go a little bit deeper into that, and probably beyond my question. So it makes sense. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a very deep and rich history in tea that stretches back thousands of years that's been related to cultivational practice, to Taoist practice, to Buddhist practice. And, we are really inheriting a long lineage of practitioners, of tea masters, of people who have been working with tea as a cultivational practice. And it's a very rich history. I'm happy to share some resources if you want to read more or learn more about it. The different brewing methods, the different lineages go back, they stretch back in history. So when you sit down to tea as a mindfulness practice, what you have behind you is um, a depth of beingness that has been cultivated over a very long period of time. Whenever we engage in ritualistic practice, we are tapping in to the repetition of that ritual through history. That's why rituals have potency, because they connect through time. It's a circle. They're not singular events. There's a reason that ritual practice um, connects us to lineage and to provenance and to depth. Rituals have depth because of the repetition of them. If you've ever gone to like a holy place, a stupa or a temple, or you've been to like India or China or to places where people have been meditating or praying a lot for hundreds of years or thousands of years, if you're even remotely sensitive energetically, the minute you step into that place, you go, whoa, what's going on here? And that's because a depth of beingness has been cultivated through repetitive practice, right? We can access that anywhere, though, specifically with tea, because your chashi, the stage on which you prepare tea, is an altar. Now, this is starting to get into esoteric stuff. If you're very Western minded, very secular, very atheistic, well, you probably wouldn't be in this attending this morning. But um, I try to remove a lot of the kind of new age spiritual speak from the way I share things because I like to ground practice in pragmatism. Does it work? Does it help? But there is an esoteric side to all of this work. So. Um, I think people are drawn to tea because it tastes good, and also because it's so grounding in the body, and I think it's a really important medicine for our overstimulated culture today. Okay, I'll take one more question and then do a sit for those of you who want to stay, and if not, then we'll send a follow-up email with some guidance on the practice and for when the next class is. Any more questions before we quiet down here a little bit? All right. Great. Um, so we're just gonna do a 15-minute sit and then kind of next steps will come out in an email in the next couple days. So again, thank you everybody so much for joining this morning and sharing your time and attention. And I hope this exploration is wonderful for all of you. This material is some of the richest material I've come across, and it's also, you know, I don't know about you, but relationships I think are the most interesting and sometimes challenging and profound opportunities for really inner work that I've come across. Um, and I really feel like relationships are the path of awakening, and also that, sangha or community or the people we interact with in our lives really, that's where the real work is in terms of inner work. So there is a place for solitary and solo work, but ultimately where it really matters is where we show up in the world, um, and how we show up to other people. And yeah, okay. So find a comfortable seated position wherever you are. I do recommend um, having a meditation pillow, because you really want to elevate your butt off the ground. If you're new to meditation, the classes will be complete, meaning we will go through an entire and full meditation at the beginning of each of these classes going forward. Um, and that practice can be a standalone practice, meaning you could just work with that for many years and it would yield fruits. But you really want a pillow that props you up so that you can roll forward on your tailbone because you really want your spine to be straight. Um, this sitting upright and having a straight spine is representative of uprightness in life. How do you face life, right? It's about what's called the heart and kidney axis, It's about our ability to cultivate uprightness in life, integrity, cultivating integrity. Um, Ideally, you're sitting on the floor with your shins flat on the ground, and you don't have to be in lotus posture with like your feet up on your thighs, but ideally, you would want your shins flat on the ground. You want to roll forward on your seat. Um, for today's sit, the hands are just going to be sitting on your knees. They can just sit comfortably on the knees. Um, you want to tuck your chin in a bit, and you want to feel the back of your head as if it's being pulled up by a string. And you can start with your eyes closed, and we're just going to take a series of deep breaths and start to draw your awareness from the external environment into your body. As you breathe, you want to let your body settle and relax. Noticing the air filling your lungs. Taking one or two breaths as deeply in as you can and exhaling slowly and deeply. Bringing our attention to the top of our heads. And from here, you want to feel like water dripping forward down your forehead to the space between the eyebrows. Noticing any tension between the eyebrows and just letting it relax. With an inhale, raise your eyebrows, and exhale, just letting them drop. You can do this a couple times. Now, keeping your eyes closed, start to feel the muscles of the eyes in the eye sockets, and you can roll them around. Just feel them as muscles. And let the eyes, you might squinch them and then let them relax. Just letting go of anything you're holding in the forehead, the eyes. Feeling a smile around the outside of the eyes, a lightness, contentment. Bring the awareness down to the planes of the cheeks, the jaw, the lips. A smile just at the edges of the lips. Swallowing a couple times. Bring the awareness down to the shoulders. We're going to roll the shoulders out a bit. With an inhalation, raise the shoulders up towards the ears. Exhale, let them drop. You can roll out the neck a couple times, feeling the neck relax as you roll it out. Now, just observing the shoulders as you breathe and letting them relax down the back. Releasing anything you're holding in the shoulders. Let that relaxation extend down the arms, the biceps and triceps, down the forearms, into the hands. Taking a moment just to feel the hands, the palms, fingertips, totally relaxed on your knees. Notice any sensations in the hands, any cold or heat or tingling. Just observe. Gently bring your attention to your chest. Feel your clothes touching your chest. Feel the rise and fall of the chest with each breath. You might feel your heartbeat. Just feeling deeply relaxed in the chest. Bring down to the stomach, to the abdomen. Feeling the rise and fall of the abdomen with each breath. And letting the abdomen relax. This is the third place that we carry a lot of tension. So letting the abdomen really relax. Noticing any holding and just breathe there. Gently bringing the attention up to the front of the hairline on your head. And start to move backwards, noticing the hair follicles, the muscles, just slowly sweeping the scalp backwards. Moving all the way back to the back of the hairline, the back of the neck. Moving down the back of the neck, back to the shoulders, and moving into the upper third of the back, to the shoulder blades and the upper spine. Taking a deep breath and just relaxing here. If the attention wanders, just bring it back to the body. Moving downwards to the mid-back. Noticing any sensations in the back. Down into the lumbar. And for a moment, just feeling the entire back. Noticing the rise and fall with the breath. Maybe feeling your ribs, your spine, all the muscles of the back. Taking a moment to expand your awareness to feel the entire upper body. Feeling it light, gently sitting up straight. And you can sway forwards or back a bit, side to side, until you find an exact center point. As you find that exact center point, you want to feel your upper body light and centered, taking in the sensation of the whole upper body and letting it move downwards to where your buttocks make contact with the ground. Starting to feel grounded. Moving down into your hips, your thighs, your pelvis. Feeling contact with the earth. Stability of the earth holding you up. Moving down the thighs and the hamstrings, down to the knees, into the calves, shins, ankles, into the feet. Feeling the weight of the lower body grounded, established, connected to the earth. Notice any sensations in the legs. Try not to label them. Just notice. With the next couple breaths, feeling the weight of the entire body, seated here and now. You can place the hands in the meditation position in your lap, with your left hand resting in your right palm, palms up. The back of the left hand sitting in the palm of the right hand, both facing up, and the thumbs touching. The next couple breaths, feeling the whole body, breathing. We're going to take a moment to notice the feeling in the body, to attend to the emotions in the heart. Feeling the whole body, notice, what are you feeling? You're relaxed, grounded. Is there anything that you're holding that you can relax? Noticing any feelings that are present beneath the surface. Just observing. Now feeling in this grounded, embodied space, contentment in the chest, deep feeling of contentment. In this moment, I have all that I need for this moment. Feeling that sense of contentment like a smile pervading the whole body, the whole mind. At peace, grounded. Going to take 3 minutes to conclude this practice through the cultivation of presence and being, staying in contact with the sensation of the whole body here. Bring your attention to your breathing at the nostrils. Feeling not only the breath entering and exiting the nostrils, but noticing the whole body is breathing and being breathed. We're going to sit in silence for a moment or two. Just observe the breath and allow for your field of awareness to stay open. Any thoughts or feelings that arise, just let them pass. No need to follow them. Stay present in the field of awareness. If thoughts do arise, you can just say thinking and return to the breath. Just seeing if you've allowed your shoulders to creep up. Just relax the body again with a couple of deep breaths, grounding, settling, coming back to this moment. Bringing your hands to heart center. You can bow with gratitude that you're taking this time for yourself and for others. As you're ready, you can come out of the practice. Now, this practice today is really about grounding and settling the nervous system and relaxing. We can't be present in a tense body, where when there's a lot of tension in the mind or emotional turmoil, we can't see the elements and the way that they move. And we can't open into a larger field of awareness and practice if the body's holding a lot. So, really, a prerequisite to going into meditation into deeper dimensions of practice is first priming the mind and the body and the emotions through letting everything settle. If you look at a wind in a lake and it's very wavy and you can't see anything beneath the surface. You don't create clarity there by trying to smack down every wave. You have to just let everything settle such that you can then see what's clear, what's underneath. In order to see the elements in ourselves, we have to let things settle so that there's clarity there. So we'll be going into deeper aspects of this practice, but today was really just about relaxing. And one thing you can do after practice is kind of massage the body, and I'll go into that a bit tomorrow or next week rather, and warming up the kidneys and some basic Taoist practice for preparing the body to then carry that relaxation into your day. I think that's it. I think we did it. So I'll stick around for a moment if anybody wants to ask questions, but we're formally done. And I will do my damnedest in the next classes to keep it in an hour so that all of us have plenty of time to go live our lives. So thank you again, everyone who came. It's nice to see some new faces and some old friends. And I really appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Could I just ask another quick question, please?
Sure.
Thank you so much. I signed up for this call. I thought, sorry, it's getting dark here now in the UK. I signed up for this call I just thought it was a one seminar jobby, but clearly it's a course. Could you just say a little bit to the or you, yeah, I'm because I'm very interested, but I wasn't aware that this was part of a greater picture.
Yeah. Um, so the way that this is organized is around 7 classes. And the first one, which will be, I think, in a week, I'll follow up on that. Um, is going to be kind of a deeper introduction to, today was really intended just kind of like as a kickoff call to just sort of welcome people and um, sort of let people know what we're going to be exploring so they could decide whether or not they wanted to do this. But it's going to be 7 classes. The one next week is to go deeper into some of the material and to explain really how to work this course so that it's really useful and beneficial. And then we're going to do one element for each class. So we start in water, and then we'll work into wood, fire, earth, metal. And with each of those classes, I'm contextualizing them as they relate to human relationships, um, and how to incorporate awareness of the elements in our relationships, and how to see them in relationships, and how to work with them in ourselves. So in Taoist cultivation, you're really working to develop a balanced cultivation and understanding of each of the elements, to know when to apply them, to know how to work with them. And in deeper Taoist practice, like Tai Chi, Qigong, Neidan, Dao Yin, we're working with the energies of the elements, cultivationally, psychologically, emotionally, to bring us into deeper balance and understanding of the way that these energies work in the world and in our functioning. Because human beings are nature, we're not separate from nature. We're part of a very long evolutionary biological process, a psycho-emotional, psycho-spiritual process. And as part of that evolutionary process, humans stand at a very unique place because we have the capacity to direct that evolutionary process through choice and will and volition, meaning you can choose to evolve. And our ability to choose to evolve, to grow, that can take an unconscious path or a very winding path, or it can take a pretty direct path. And the direct path is to recognize that all the material you need for your own unique curriculum, your own growth path, your own evolution is present in your life right now. It is seen in the relationships you're in the patterns that you're in, and the things you're avoiding, and the things you're turning towards and facing, and the choices that you're making. And ultimately in your relationships. Relationships are such a profound catalyst for growth. And so really this course is designed to help give you tools and understanding to work with relationships as part of your evolutionary trajectory.
And
It's
when you
really
say
about turning the whole world into your sangha. That's one way of thinking about it.
and when you say relationships, do you just mean exterior, or is it relational within oneself and the different parts
Well,
and the
my
different
question would be, and I
patterns?
don't I don't mean this to be cheeky, but I am cheeky. So what's the difference?
Yeah, there is none.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
exactly. So it's all a mirror, right?
Yeah.
People are a mirror, and they are constantly mirroring things back to us. We have to cultivate sensitivity to see what's being mirrored. And it's hard, like I try to do this work as a daily moment by moment practice and fall on my face just nonstop. So, it's about cultivating sensitivity. And in order to have that sensitivity, the nervous system has to be relaxed. We can't be tense. We have to be receptive and observant and be willing to face things that we might not want to, and to turn and face each other in ways that might be uncomfortable. So, and to recognize we all have ways that we were raised, and that most of our parents were modeling and conditioning patterns of behavior that aren't the most conscious, enlightened ways of being. So we have to reparent ourselves in as our own teachers to ourselves, in learning how our nervous systems protect themselves and how we avoid things or how we hide or how we don't fully face everything, how we repress and suppress material into the unconscious. And really, the idea is to fully open up all those relationships to see everything, and then also to recognize that this path of waking up is the field of practice is everywhere. It is not when you just sit and meditate or drink tea. It's in every moment of your life is the field of practice.
Totally. Quite a mission.
Yeah. Well, you could relate to that as pressure, or you could
No, not
recognize
at
what an
all.
extraordinary opportunity it is.
And I
Everybody's
just
like, I
think
don't have
it's
time to practice. And I go, well, what do you mean you're practicing right now?
absolutely,
Um,
no, I just think it's really exciting the way you're talking as well about bringing in the with the nervous system and the attachment styles. Because I looked at that many, many moons ago and I was quite blown away by the accuracy of it. But I
yeah.
notice as a human who's in their early 50s that that attachment style has been changing and evolving big time over the last few decades, particularly now as I parent and my son is now an adult and my nervous system, everything's changing all the time.
Mhm.
And I can really feel that my attachment style is very different to what it was when I was growing up in Ireland, when it was very much an anxious attachment style. It's very much not that now.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Thank
you're
God.
you're growing and evolving.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Still,
cool.
oh, hello, dog.
He's like, why have we not gone on a walk this morning? This is ridiculous behavior, my friend.
Well, his attachment style.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an anxious attachment, but it's becoming more secure, isn't it, bud? Yeah, we're getting there.
Beautiful.
Um,
Thank you. Anyway, I don't want to hog the. I could talk to you all day, but thank you so much.
yeah, my pleasure. I think this material is really quite exciting and very, it sort of feels like it's at the leading edge for me of where growth is available. And so I'm hoping that what I'm sharing is a benefit to everybody here and that they're able to see more than they currently do.